Welcome back, everybody. You're welcome. This is the Temple Day Telegram Sports Podcast. I was noticing someone left a gigantic bottle of hand sanitizer on this desk that we use, and I don't really know why.
Never be too clean.
Yeah. Or maybe they just want us to clean up our act while we're doing this. I'm not really sure.
They're trying to tell us something.
Yeah, I guess so. But it's week 5. Unbelievably, it is already week 5. This is the last Friday of September. We are moving right along this season. And back with you tonight, this is Josh Weaver with Greg Willie.
Hello.
Yes, Daniel Zepeda.
What's going on?
Marcus Hood.
Howdy.
Who already spoke, interrupted the introduction.
I gotta shake things up, man.
Yes.
Because I gotta change my pattern, man. Because Daniel has moved ahead of me in the picks now. So
Uh-oh.
For now.
he is our leader.
Right on.
So
And I continue to move down.
As Marcus likes to say, it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Yes.
It's a long season.
it's a sprint now. I gotta get back on top.
I usually quit both sprints and marathons, so.
I never enter them.
You let the correspondence settle it, don't you?
Yeah. I just veer off course and go have a hamburger.
I like this conversation.
Well, District 12-6A has been in, this is the third week for that district, but a couple of other area districts are getting underway this week, including 10-3A Division 1, which has a bunch of our area teams in it. So let's look at some of the matchups, I guess, real quick, happening this week. In District 12-6A, the Thursday night game tonight is Coppers Cove at Killeen Ellison, which is a big game for those two schools. Coppers Cove's 0-2 so far, and Ellison is 1-1.
Must win for Cove, right?
Must win for Cove. Must win really for both teams. I mean, I'm going to say that the even though we're only heading into the third week in that district, teams are kind of starting to separate themselves at the top, and those who haven't won yet better start winning, and if you have won, you better keep winning.
Because you got to get to at least 4-4 to make the playoffs, if not 5-3.
At
right?
least.
Yeah.
Also on tap in that district, Shoemaker at Belton. Tigers are 2-0 in district so far. Shoemaker winless, 0-3 overall, 0-1 in district. Lost to Temple last week, 42-6, and the Grey Wolves currently have the second longest losing streak in the state at 24 games. But we'll get to them in a little bit. Harker Heights is at Killeen. Killeen's looking pretty solid so far. In District 8-4A, Waco Connolly at Salado. Which looks like an interesting one. 10-3A, Academy at Manor New Tech, which is the new school in that district and first varsity season overall. Cameo at Troy looks like a juicy one to start off, and Gerald at Lago Vista. Lago Vista is not necessarily new in that district, but they're back in that district after a couple years away. District 8-2A, Division 1, Axtell at Bruce Valetti, and Italy at Moody. In 13-2A1, Hearn at Holland, and Thorndale at Rosebud Lot. And then some non-district matchups. Gatesville is at Lampasas, Crawford at Rogers. That looks pretty good too. Frost at Bartlett, Granger at Anderson Shiro, Buckholtz at Cedar Park Summit, Kennedale Fellowship at Central Texas Christian, Jonesboro at Holy Trinity Catholic, and two teams idle this week, Temple and Rockdale.
That doesn't mean they're not doing anything, though.
No, just idle as far as Friday night games or Thursday night games, I guess. Not playing.
When you said Italy and Holland, I thought maybe you were talking European soccer again.
No, I wasn't.
I think that's a different podcast.
I'm not allowed to do that on here.
We only talk American football here.
Yes. Yeah. Thanks for throwing me off, Greg.
You're welcome.
Now I'm thinking about the Premier League. Oh, well.
Getting up early for those games on the weekends, are you?
Yeah, I'll just real quick, I'll touch on Shoemaker at Belton, and then we'll get to Temple on what the Wildcats have done so far. Belton has won 3 straight, and they looked pretty solid start to finish last week against Harker Heights. Beat them 48-14. It was 41-0 at halftime, and that first half included 2 interceptions returned for a touchdown, and Belton's offense scoring on 4 or 5 possessions. The defense only allowed, I think, 92 yards in the first half, and most of the Knights' damage was done late in the third and the fourth quarter against Belton's reserves. More than half of the Knights' total yards came on their last 2 drives of the game. And for the second straight week, Belton is playing a winless team. However, the Tigers are not looking past Shoemaker as they didn't look past Harker Heights. I mean, that's just the way it goes in this district. You're not going to look over anybody. And Belton head coach Sam Skidmore, as Temple coach Scott Stewart said last week, Shoemaker is quite talented. They might be a year or 2 away as far as contending for a district championship or something like that, but they do have some weapons. They do have some playmakers on both sides of the ball. So this one is not an easy task, despite what the results have shown so far as the Gray Wolves go. And you saw Temple play Shoemaker last week,
right?
And Stewart said some of those same things.
Yeah. Shoemaker. I mean, you look out there, you see some guys that look like good football players. Some big wide receivers with speed. Pretty good quarterback named Bradley. It looks like he runs the show pretty well. They're probably just lacking a little bit on the lines of scrimmage or just consistency. I mean, they'll do something good and then something breaks down. So they're kind of looking for that spark. But I was impressed when they went on the road to San Angelo Central and only lost 19-7. I think that was a game going into the late third or fourth quarter.
Yeah.
So they're playing competitive football. And Temple got on them pretty good last week after a while, but they've kind of been doing that to everybody. So, but no, Shoemaker, they look like they're getting better. I thought they were significantly better than Harker Heights, seeing them 2 straight weeks. I think, Shoemaker should at least win that game in district, if not a couple of more. So I think Shoemaker's, they're on the right road. It's just,
and it says something too that back-to-back weeks our area coaches have complimented Shoemaker the way they have. I mean, I don't think that they're just going to say that because they've seen some things out of the Gray Wolves for sure.
Well, and also their coach Toby Foreman, he coached Beaumont Central to I think 4 straight playoff berths before he came to Shoemaker. So I think he's a guy who has a plan. It's just can you get the kids to buy in and just have everything fall right? And I think by next year it'll probably happen, but I don't know about this year.
Right. Well, as far as Belton's concerned, I mean they're going to want to do pretty much exactly what they did last week against Harker Heights. Get out front early, build on the lead, keep it, and just go full speed ahead for the entire 48 minutes. And stay unbeaten in district with the likes of Temple. And Midway is also 2-0 going into this week as well. And they are playing, where are they at? They're playing Waco? Yeah. So that's likely going to leave Midway at 3-0. Belton's just kind of going to take the business as usual and go about things the way they normally handle it. And move on from there to next week's game against Temple, which obviously is going to be a good one.
Yes.
You kind of wonder, I mean, you've kind of mentioned it, but you do kind of worry with Temple coming up, and everybody knows how big that game is, if this possibly could be a trap game for Belton.
Yeah, Skidmore did mention that as a definite possibility, and that always creates a little bit of nervousness. But, Belton's, been in games like this before, and I would say over the last couple years they've handled them pretty well. Whether it's the game before playing Midway or the game before playing Harker Heights, when Harker Heights was a little bit, better. But I don't see. I really don't see Belton, looking that far ahead where they're going to risk losing a game that they should win. They're obviously going to come out and try to take care of business. But yeah, you're right. I mean, it's not a. It can cause some worries for sure. The week before a big rivalry game.
Kind of like Texas this week playing Kansas State the week before Oklahoma.
Right.
Everybody telling Texas how good they are now.
Well, yeah, Texas coming out, after what they did last week. Yeah.
And they never play well against Kansas State, especially
on the road.
Yes.
Yeah, sure.
But this is a high school football podcast.
Yes. Well, those kids.
You're getting a little bit of everything tonight.
Yeah, of course. And speaking of that, I guess we'll just go down the classifications here. District 8, 4A, Division 2, Connolly at Salado. that's an interesting one just based on the way the two teams have played so far. Connolly's 3-1, Salado 2-2. Salado's kind of done some good things and then done some not so good things. They haven't strung together a whole bunch of great yet. Last year's game was a landslide in favor of Salado, but Greg, I think you're going to be covering that one. But I mean, anyone else any thoughts on Salado so far?
Like you said, I mean, they've kind of had an up and down type of season so far, and I think those guys are still kind of improving, seeing what they have. And it's a tough district opener for them. I mean, you talk about if you lose this when your back's up against the wall right away, because Lorena and Fairfield have not lost a game yet. Connolly's 3-1, so you're already looking at potentially trying to go for the fourth place spot, or having to knock off one of those teams that's proven that they're going to win this year.
Yeah.
So
I got to talk to Salado coach Alan Hare over there, and against that Taylor game, he would have liked to see his team execute a little better than they did. I think their short passing game really did a number on Salado, and it was a big reason for their win. But he really wanted them to just, would have liked to see a lot fewer mistakes, that you're finally getting to play at home. I think it was probably their first game at home, maybe.
Yeah, last week.
So you're finally getting to play at home in front of your homecoming crowd, and, that last game right before district starts, you kind of want to, play well, get your confidence up as you head into district, and especially with as competitive as it is. So he thinks his team's up for the challenge. But again, like I said, he would have liked to see them a little sharper and get that confidence up, but he's not too worried.
Yeah, you mentioned what Taylor did through the year, and Greg, you were mentioning before we even started this that Salado might not do quite as well against a team that throws the ball quite as much, and Connolly doesn't.
Right. Connolly is probably a lot closer to what Salado likes to do. I mean, maybe not exactly the same, but they tend to keep it on the ground and have pretty good athletes usually. And apparently they're playing some pretty good defense, because they only gave up 7 to Gatesville last week.
Yeah.
So they're off to a good 3-1 start. And offensively, they're averaging 33 points a game. So, Salado's going to have to shore up the defense and use its running attack to put some points up against Connolly. I think it's a Salado team. It's not the same team as last year, but they obviously know how they want to play football. Maybe it's just the new kids who have filled in these spots. But by the 5th game, some stuff might click in, and there'll definitely be a sense of urgency. Sure. District opener at home against a good team when you only get 6 district games. So I'd expect a good performance out of Salado, but we'll see if it's good enough against a pretty sharp Connolly team.
Yeah, and it looked like the Eagles made a switch at quarterback a couple games into the year too. I know Rook Brown kind of started out there, and he's now he's playing running back,
right.
And done a good job there. And is it Hutton Hare?
Hutton Hare.
Yeah, coach's son. Has taken over at quarterback. So like you're mentioning, pieces are kind of coming into place, and a couple games under their belts, and
so they're moving a rook around.
That's it.
The chess pieces
Yes.
in the backfield.
I think, yeah.
I think his parents envisioned that whenever they named him originally, so that was the plan.
Maybe they'll have a good hair night on Friday.
Shows off the rails.
A cricket just ran into the wall on purpose. Can't believe it. Oh man,
It's late.
yes. All right, moving along to 10-3A Division 1.
please.
Academy at Maynard New Tech. I mean, we're not really sure what to expect out of New Tech yet. What are they, 1-3?
1-3.
1-3. They've got a lot of athletes, big guys. So
Yeah.
new program, but definitely no slouch.
Yeah, sure. Academy coming off an emotional victory last week.
It's kind of interesting. Maynard New Tech hasn't played a close game yet. They have
Either way,
They've
yeah.
been hammered 3 times, and they have a shutout win over Eastside Memorial out of
Okay.
Austin, which is a pretty weak program overall. So
Yeah.
who knows what to expect from New Tech,
Right.
really.
Yeah. Academy looked pretty good against Florence last week, but Florence hasn't been much of a challenge for its opponents yet. So, Academy just probably kind of wants to keep things, keep improving.
Keep the confidence up. They
Yeah.
got a interesting situation at quarterback. Ryan White, the junior, versus Jerry Cephas, the sophomore. White's got the extra year. He's a little better passer. He kind of handles himself a little better in the pocket. But Cephas, he's a good athlete, likes to run. He can you give him some space and he can get you yards. When I was at that Academy Florence game, when I talked to head coach Paul Williams for Academy, he said ideally he would like to have just one guy, their quarterback, now that district's play is about to start. But he said as of today that, a few days away, he's still not sure. He's leaning more towards staying with that rotation, kind of a if it's not broke, don't fix it kind of idea. But, he said a lot could change.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not like Clemson where, like, if one guy gets benched, he's not going to transfer out of the program.
No.
Both kids need to play and get better. So
Yeah.
unless one guy's way better than the other, you might as well play both and build experience.
For sure.
But neither one's a senior, too, so
Right.
that could help you going into next year even.
Yeah. Having two is better than having one or
Especially
having
when
nobody.
you're going to be playing Cameron Yo, Rockdale. Injuries happen in football, so
Yeah.
if one guy goes down, you got another one to fill in.
Yep. Gerald at Lago Vista. Gerald putting up some really good offensive numbers so far. Already with 2 wins, they're 2-2, moving in the right direction. But this Cameron Yo at Troy to open up district is an intriguing matchup. Troy's had some pretty big wins this year. Cameron Yo has played some big opponents as far as school size difference.
They're finally dropping down into 3A here for this one. Right?
Yo's had Troy's number obviously the past few years, and I think Daniel, you talked to both coaches. How are they kind of assessing this matchup? I mean, it's a big one to start out.
It's a big one. I think a lot of us kind of perked up when we originally saw this matchup. We were pretty excited. We thought it'd be a good one.
The cricket is back too.
Hey,
Just
there we
happy
go.
now.
Just come on back now. But over at Troy, Ronnie Porter, he says that this Troy team, it's not the same team that Cameron Yo has faced the past few years. It's a team that we've said all year long that it was young last year, showed a lot of mistakes, but it kind of this year's kind of turning things around just due to that experience and that added talent. So they're trying not to be intimidated. Porter did kind of confess that the past few years it's been more of a intimidation, kind of putting Yo up there on a pedestal. But he said this year, with the added experience, that and the maturity, that they're trying not to do that and just kind of treat them as a regular opponent. But, by no means does that mean this is going to be an easy game or an easy district opener. And then over at Yo, Coach Tommy Brashear, he first off, with their game against Giddings last week, where it ended on the field goal after a 30-minute rain delay with 2-3 seconds left.
2.7 seconds left.
2.7 seconds. He said he'd never been involved with something like that.
That's really icing the kicker, isn't it?
It didn't work though. It's only icing if you ice them.
Well, you try to ice. You don't know if
you try to go for that. Brashear said that he feared that the coach over at Giddings thought that was the plan, that he was trying to ice him, but he said he would have just rather him try to kick it in the rain, with everything being wet. But he also acknowledged that Troy is vastly better than where they were this time last year, and that their biggest kind of evolution has been their passing game. We all know about the running game, Zach Krabachik, and what he can do when he gets the ball, but he said that the thing that really makes Troy dangerous is their passing game, the fact that they can throw the ball. So, as he said, you can't just load up in the box. You've got to be prepared for, an attack through the air and, be ready for that. But it should be a good one.
Marcus, the last time someone said they were worried about Troy's passing attack, was that maybe when Jake McMurtry was behind center for Troy, maybe roughly 9-10 years ago?
It's been a while.
Yeah.
It probably has, but yeah, like Daniel said, I mean, obviously, I think Porter probably assessed the last couple seasons and realized they need more of a passing game if they're going to play with the likes of Rockdale, Cameron Yo, because you put some teams that are going for state titles every year, and you want to compete with them, you're going to have to be more than one-dimensional. And each week you've seen Troy try to build that passing game up, and they're going to need it big time against Yo that can adjust. I mean, Yo last week, I was at that Cameron Yo Giddings game where we had that nice little delay that nobody wanted. I mean, everybody in the press box, both Cameron and Cameron coaches, all of us were going, okay, at some point you just got to have a little common sense and let the guy kick, because it's going to be over one way or the other. But it was kind of an interesting situation. But
defense.
Yo was dominated the first half against Giddings, but what Cameron Yo's been able to do over the years is adjust to what the other team is doing, and they figure out where a team's weakness is and they play to it. And that's why, if you're one-dimensional, like Troy had been several years, just having that running game, Cameron Yo will knock you down and beat you. That's why if you have that passing game, it's going to be a much more interesting, battle. And one thing about, you talked about the two quarterback system, and that's something that Cameron Yo kind of has. And honestly, I think that's what hurt him last week. Not the two quarterback system per se, but Braden Brashear had kind of played the whole game. And then late, when Yo actually took the lead, they switched quarterbacks. Now, I don't mind a two quarterback system necessarily, but there's something about a quarterback playing a whole game. You've got your timing, your rhythm down. And if you're inserted into the game that late as quarterback, that's when Yo had two of their fumbles, and one of them was a costly one at the end because, that second quarterback's just not in the rhythm of the game at that position.
Right.
He's played, he's just not there. And so if you're going to do it, just do it throughout the entire game so both guys kind of do it. And
It's kind of a, stay with the horse that brought you kind of thing,
right. And I understand.
Especially when he's your own son.
Right.
I'm kidding.
Brashear, obviously, he's more of a passing quarterback. It's Lane, I think.
Anthony Lane.
Who's more of a runner. And, not to fault Lane at all, but, it wasn't the time to put him in at that point. And, Yo coaches know more than I do, obviously, but that's just kind of...
Well, and maybe try something
And
in
it
a
is
non-district game
yeah,
where
that's what I
it's
was
not
getting
really
Right.
costing you anything in the grand scheme of things. But now they know maybe what works and what doesn't, and now you're ready to go.
Right. But that's a good one. Another good one, well, I want to talk about Holland a little bit. Beating Crawford the way they did last week. That's
Holland's for real.
Yeah, that's a bit of a statement win. You never really know what Crawford's going to bring, but that's always
Usually
a
they're
really
pretty
good team.
and
Yeah.
pretty hard to beat at their place.
But the Hornets took it to them. What did they roll off, like 20-something points in a row, something like that?
Yeah. Ended up winning, 35-14,
Yeah.
I think. Yeah.
Just a complete performance. But yeah, the Holland is looking pretty legit. They stacked their non-district schedule pretty good to kind of test themselves, and came out of it with a 3-1 record. And now they go into district against Hearn, which actually I was looking today when I was writing the preview cap. Hearn was picked to win that district. Which was a bit surprising to me with Holland.
Bold move, copy.
Yeah, by Dave Campbell. So I'll just, whatever.
Grain of salt.
Yes,
there. Yeah.
right, exactly. But I kind of found that interesting. And Hearn's they've only played twice.
Yeah,
according to
2
what
games
we
have been
have.
canceled
Yeah,
because they've been
which
rained out.
doesn't help any team, obviously. But Holland, I would just say, just keep on doing what you're doing. Run that ball and play some good defense. And
Yep. The thing that makes Holland so dangerous is, last year they were a great team, put together a, solid playoff run. But all season long, they were kind of missing a pretty good quarterback. I don't remember who they had last year, but they had, he could get the job done, but, you just didn't see a whole lot of playmaking. But now you add in that same team for the most part. You still got your big playmakers like Brady Shelton, Clay Cooper, a bunch of other guys. But, now you add in a quarterback, Zane Spinn, and this guy, he's shown already that he's got good control there in the pocket. He's got a good rhythm for the offense. He can pass it just as well as run it. And then on defense, also, I think he lines up usually at safety. And last week against Crawford, I think he had an interception in the end zone, and then ran it all the way back for a touchdown. So
Iron Man football.
yeah. So you had that team, that did so well last year. You had a solid quarterback and just another year of experience and confidence, really. They played some tough teams already. They played Mart earlier and then getting the win against Crawford. They look really good, heading into district play.
Yeah. Another team that's looked pretty good so far is Rogers. And that same Crawford team that Holland beat is at Rogers this week. 3 wins already for the Eagles. They had 4 all of last year. They are, Coach Charlie Roten's doing something over there, and that's another team that runs the ball really well. with a bunch of different guys. And I think they outscored Bosqueville 30-8 maybe or something like that last week in the second half. But Rogers looking good as well. And Granger, too, after losing its first game of the season. They've won 3 in a row. And they're playing Anderson Shiro, which is an interesting story. They had lost 21 straight games coming into this year, and they've won their first 3. So that's a non-district game, but that's, another interesting matchup.
And those long losing streaks that's been snapped this year.
Yeah.
A bunch of them.
Yeah, but we can circle back, I guess, real quick, and talk a little bit about Temple. 4-0, like we mentioned.
I knew we'd mention Anderson Shiro before we got to
Got
talking about
back to Temple.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, who doesn't want to hear about Anderson Shiro? 2 names with a hyphen.
Show of hands.
It's crazy.
I will tell you everything I know about Anderson Shiro. They're 3-0, and they're the Owls.
Yep.
Yep.
They got a hyphen in
Hoot
there.
hoot.
Yes.
Ooh, cricket.
Yeah, but Temple Wildcats 4-0, overall 2-0 in district, and 2-0 in district with 2 just kind of routes.
Yes.
Not kind of routes,
Yeah.
actual routes in their first 2 games. And now they got to sit around for a couple weeks and waiting for
Belton Tigers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That other team.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's not – I mean, Temple probably wishes it was playing this week just to kind of keep some momentum rolling. And,
Yeah.
but, on the other hand, they get an extra few days to prepare for those Tigers.
They do, and I mean, they'll take a good look at Belton, and of course, the 2 teams that Temple just blew out, Harker Heights and Shoemaker, are the 2 that they've gotten to see Belton play against, or by the time
we'll
Friday
see.
night
Yeah.
comes. So they'll scout Belton the best they can out of that, but I think Temple's, they've gotten their subs a lot of playing time in the second half of these games. Actually, their last 3 games, because they're Temple's starting defense hasn't allowed a point in the last 3 games, so that shows you they're playing pretty well. And and the subs have only given up 6 in the last 2 games, so not too bad. And then, of course, offensively, Temple is they've just been real balanced and efficient this year. I mean, Jared Wiley, 13 touchdown passes, no interceptions. That's a pretty good QBR or
Not bad.
whatever the rating thing is. Quentin Johnston, junior receiver, 9 touchdowns already, averaging 41 yards per touchdown. So
Is that good?
that's pretty decent. Dejon Overton, the last 2 weeks he's been just an animal. I mean, 353 rushing yards, 5 touchdowns. And then the guy that he's kind of in there with or takes turns with, Anthony Jackson, 28 yards a carry. They gave him last week off. He was battling some kind of upper body ailment, and they figured, let's give him
heard
the
it in a
extra
hockey game or something?
Yeah. It's either upper body or lower body. That's all we're telling you.
Yeah.
But yeah. But anyway, he'll be back healthy for the Belton game, and Temple didn't really have any injuries of note even coming out of the Shoemaker game, so they should be fully healthy going in. They'll be at home. Should be a full house next week. They're looking to clean up a few things, maybe special teams, but I mean, really, it's been an ideal start for Temple, and I think they really want to go undefeated at home this year. They got 6 home games. You still got Belton coming in, Midway coming in later. I think Ellison comes over, so I think that would be a big thing for Temple. And I think I'm right. If you were the higher seed in the playoffs, you get the first round game at home. Does that
First place, the district champion.
district champion?
I don't know if they've gone to the higher seed all the way.
Okay, so if Temple's able to win the district,
Yeah, I think further down in the standings, it depends where you finish or whatever. But
Gotcha.
yeah.
and of course they'd be small school,
Division two,
Division II. Most, I think the only way they'd be Division I is if Cove, Waco, and Temple all make it, which is unlikely.
Yeah,
so
at this point, it doesn't
yeah.
look like.
So anyway, Temple's looking good. I mean, first 4-0 start in 15 years. So
yeah.
they're rolling, but obviously it starts to get tougher next week because
Right.
Belton will bring a solid offense and defense in, and a heck of a lot of incentive to win that game, because I think Belton's tired of losing to Temple, and of course they probably say that every year, but I think they got the means to beat Temple this year, but they got to play really well.
The matchups do kind of intensify here as we get into October for both Belton and Temple. I mean, obviously they start off against each other, but both have to play clean still, which looked, I mean, probably could have defeated Midway in the district opener.
For sure.
And the Kangaroos are 1-1 now. They both have to play Midway, and you never know what Ellison is going to do. And then I guess they both have to play Waco also. Yeah. But I mean, the matchups are much more elevated as we get deeper into the season for both the Tigers and the Wildcats. So it's definitely going to be, as we said before, a marathon. Yes. We'll bring that back in District 12 6A for sure. As far as this marathon goes,
UMHB home opener.
Yeah,
Saturday?
Finally, after 3 road games, they are in Belton playing Southwestern.
And they've outscored their opponents. Is it 1 billion to 0 so far? Or
very little.
Something like that.
And apparently they're still not satisfied.
Yes.
Nope.
Coach Fredenberg is back too, right? After
he's back.
3 games away.
See, they better not lose, or Coach Fred may be out of a job.
Yeah. People are going to start talking.
Yeah.
Nah, I don't think so.
I don't think they'll lose either.
Wrong.
So.
Yeah, but that's a 6 p.m. game, I believe. Saturday evening over there.
Decent stadium out there if you want to go check them out.
Nice,
if you
nice
haven't
atmosphere.
Been, you need to go.
Decent stadium. I mean, if you don't want to check them out,
There you go.
I would love to check them out, but I'll be over there at my desk.
We will be here.
Yeah, we kind of work these Saturdays.
inside this building.
So go for us. Take advantage.
Yeah, enjoy it. And I hope you enjoyed this, whatever this was, week 5 of the Temple Daily Telegram Sports Podcast. Be sure to pick up our paper every day because there's always something to read in it.
Lots of stuff in Friday and Saturday's paper.
Friday, Saturday, Sunday are always packed with the local stuff, college football, NFL. In today's paper, actually, Wednesdays, some volleyball stories in there for you. Belton's volleyball team beat Midway, which is good for them. Mm-hmm. Temple lost to Copper's Cove, but they're still, hoping to get into the playoffs. They're on the outside looking in right now. But
who's your Belton feature?
Read all about
on
that
week?
Stuff. My Belton feature is actually on quarterback Connor Carruthers. He is about to start his 15th game for the Tigers. Got thrown in last year in the second half against Temple as a junior. Who knows how much he was going to play last year had Cameron Davis been healthy, but he took those reins, started 10 games last year, and hasn't given him up since.
Blessing in disguise maybe for Belton to get 2 years out of that guy instead of just one.
Definitely. Highly praised and appreciated by the coaching staff over there. So that's in there. Daniel's going to have a kind of a notebook on the area teams that are starting district, and a Player of the Week feature also on a volleyball player. And preview capsules as always. So pick up all that stuff, read it online, and thanks for listening.